right, let's jump in. Hey, everybody, welcome to the first 90 days, strategies to ensure your car wash success from the start. My name is Todd Davey. I'm the SVP of sales here at DRB, joined the company back in 1996 and have been living car wash ever since then. It's great to be with you today. I'm going to introduce Dan Flatley, the president of Suds Creative. Hi, Dan.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm Dan Flatley, president of Suds Creative. I've been with the company now since 2022, so not quite as long as Todd. I've been in the car wash space for about 2 years, and prior to that was a management consultant, and prior to that was in the military. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. I'm going to get us started with just a little background on the Zoom side of things. We're doing this as a Zoom webinar, so this will be an interactive presentation, but interactive in that we'll go through some things and then we'll try to take questions and answers at the end. At the bottom of the screen, there's a Q&A button that you'll see at the bottom. I've got it highlighted here. If you have a question, you can click that button and type your question. We'll be monitoring that, and at the end of the webinar, we'll answer as many questions as we can. We are going to try to finish up around 3:45 today, is just to keep, we don't want this to drag on too long, but any question we don't get answered, we'll try to get answers out via email to everyone at the end of the presentation. And if you don't see that Q&A button, if you click on View Options and then Exit Full Screen at the top of the page, that should put the webinar into a smaller window where you can get to that Q&A button. If you have any kind of problem, if you're having audio trouble, you can't hear us, any kind of technical difficulties, we're monitoring that as well. So just let us know in the Q&A button, and we'll try to get that addressed as quick as we can. And with that, let's get started. I'm going to give you a little background on DRB before we get going. A lot of folks on the call today are new names that I don't recognize, which is fantastic. Thank you for joining us. For over 30 years, DRB's journey has been about helping entrepreneurs discover the American dream of running and growing your business. And when we do that, we're made up of several companies. Sorry, I just had an inadvertent button click there and bounced back. But we're made up of DRB Tunnel Solutions, which focuses on conveyorized car wash tech, including POS, tunnel optimization, dashboard reporting, and business statistics. DRB In-Bay Solutions, which really focuses on the unattended in-bay automatic point of sale and C-store space. Again, with POS and reporting solutions. Suds is our analytics, software, and design-driven car wash marketing agency that drives customer revenue and profit and also helps you select sites, which we'll talk about more in the presentation. Washify is another POS player. It's a great comprehensive solution for new and growing car wash businesses, specifically driving it towards flex and full-serve locations. And then Driverse is repair and light repair lube shop maintenance software. So we've driven an unprecedented era of growth in the car wash industry, and we do that in several ways. First, we've helped operators limit their weather impacts by commercializing the unlimited car wash membership. Next, we have improved customer experiences with actionable data insights and marketing strategies. And finally, we want to tap hidden growth potential with uptime and monitoring services like our No Pileups product that helps you maximize your profit throughout the tunnel. With that same pioneering spirit that's driven us since our beginning, we are consistently evolving to help our operators conquer new challenges and chart new paths to growth. So where do we play? We are not a one-stop shop. We do everything on the car wash lot. Instead, we specialize in key areas that allow us to be the best at what we do. And here's a pretty good depiction of where we play in a car wash. It starts from the minute you drive on the lot. We have marketing strategies to address operator pain points, such as new site and anonymity, creating robust go-to-market programs for your site. In a competitive market, we can help you provide a unique brand experience. If you have low membership sales, we help you optimize those conversions. And if you're having margin challenges, our innovative products can help drive customers to your car wash. We also do in-lot signage design. We track when the car pulls up to the pay station, we identify the vehicle and we help identify that customer at the POS and again at the tunnel entrance, kind of drive memberships and growth. And then our point of sale hardware kind of scrolls us through. We use SiteWatch and Patheon, our point of sale products, that kind of just the actual managing the transaction, making sure that the car, whatever they purchase is what they get in the tunnel. Tunnel Watch kind of monitors what we do as we go through the tunnel, making sure that every device turns on at the right time and the car gets the right service. And then we have tunnel control and monitoring from the No Pileups end to keep cars from colliding in the tunnel and allow you to stack cars closer and closer together. So we kind of touch we're the spinal cord of the business. We love to use that as kind of a background on what we do. We want to help make sure that that consumer has the best experience possible when they're at your wash. So what are we going to cover today? Well, when you leave this webinar today, we want to have you have a better understanding of why the first 90 days is so critical and important to your long-term success. We'll talk a little bit about consumer behavior principles that you can keep in mind when you're setting your pricing strategy at the wash. And then we're going to look at important KPIs over the first 90 days. What we're really trying to talk about today is that first 90 days is the most important time of your business, getting your memberships to grow, making sure that you've got your site dialed in and ready to go. And we're going to spend a lot of time talking about that today. With that, I'm going to hand it off to Dan to talk about the first 90 days.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to start out here, folks, by talking a little bit about a case study in the first 90 days. So what you see depicted on the slide here is the difference between what we at Suds would consider a very strong first 90 days on the left-hand side and a weak 90 days on the right-hand side. And we quantify that in terms of the number of unlimited members that you have at the end of that 90 days. So there's a lot of different ways we can potentially measure this, but this is one indication of kind of how we're doing as an organization, as a car wash after that 90 days. And what you should take away from this is kind of two things, like why this matters. One is the first 90 days, think of it like an airliner. If that airliner takes off with empty seats, there's no way to recover that revenue. So if you are not putting in new members in your first 90 days aggressively, you're never going to get that recurring revenue back over the course of that period. That doesn't mean that it's a death sentence. And we certainly see sites that maybe have a slow 90 days that still become really successful, but it's about getting your return on investment really, really quickly. The other part of why the first 90 days are so important is there is an incredible level of predictive power in those 90 days. And so, for example, with Suds, what we can do is we can look at your performance over that 90 days and then predict within about 10% how you're going to do at the end of year one, which then, of course, then predicts how you're going to do at the end of year two and year three. And that return on investment, that significant decision you just made to build a car wash, we can map that out on your behalf, assuming that you have a strong 90 days that we can understand. So I think we can go on. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, so very simply, how do we get the best first 90 days? Go to the next slide. So there's three things here in ensuring that strong 90 days. I'm going to talk a little bit about each of these and we'll get into some details. So having the right site location. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about the right place and the right time. And I'll get into what that means here in a second. And then choosing the right offerings and the right prices. So this is a volume and ticket or industry. You want to drive the volume, but you also want to maximize your individual ticket. And the way we do that is pricing and product placement that eases the strain on the customer and eases the strain on your employees. Make it very easy for a customer to understand what they're getting. They're excited about the top package. They select the top package and they get through the tunnel. That's key for the right offerings, the right prices. And then the third is we want to have a funnel that points directly at your site from the moment you open through that first 90 days. And we're going to have that funnel both in the physical space as well as the digital space as well. Like being available digitally is as important these days as being available and visible physically. So those are the three things we're going to talk about here in the next couple slides. So first off, making sure you have the right site. As I mentioned, this is the biggest decision, and I consider it one of the most risky decisions in the industry is, okay, where am I going to put this thing in time and space? And there's a couple of things that I want to kind of anchor on this because this is really critical in my mind. There is understanding real estate, and then there's understanding real estate for car washes. And a lot of folks come into the car wash industry and they're very strong real estate background. And I totally understand that, and that experience is really important. But there are specific things about being a real estate driven car wash focus that's going to be really important. As an example, when we have folks come into the industry, the public data is available to everybody about traffic count, population, demographics, all of that stuff is available to everyone. However, it's how you understand and use that data to pick the right site that's the most critical. As an example, one of the things you'll see a lot is the vehicles per day that pass by my site. And folks will come and tell me like, hey, I'm not comfortable unless there's 30,000 cars per day that goes past this potential site. And I will tell them that frankly, that has zero predictive capability on your performance of your site. It really doesn't matter if there's 30,000 or 35,000 or 40,000 cars that are going by. The other one is population. So, hey, I need it to be a growing population site. I'm not going to go anywhere where there's just stable or even declining population. That turns out that only predicts about 20% of your performance overall, even if you consider it with traffic. And then finally, we hear a lot about competition. So that's the third one. Well, I'm really worried about competition. The really interesting thing about competition is it's generally the quality more than the quantity. And it's also the location of where you are in the trade area that we find that folks will just straight turn off a site because it's 0.75 miles away from another express car wash. Well, those two never shall meet because of the different ways that the trade areas operate. So that's kind of how, when we think about site selection and where to put a site, like where the myths we're trying to bust or the rumors we're trying to get rid of. So what are the things that actually do matter? Well, it's proximity to retail, but it's proximity to a very particular type of retail. We call it high frequency retail. The retail that someone is going to go to several times a week, that is exactly where we want to be. We want to be ensure that we have really strong visibility. As an example, like we may have great visibility on a road, but it's 55-mile-per-hour road. Like we need to have giant signs for that site as opposed to a road that's maybe 25 or 35 miles per hour. And then the other one that's really important, and this is where it factors into that population metric, is we want to be where people are going, not necessarily where people live. We find that it's not uncommon, but it's more rare that someone is going to leave their house, get in their car, drive to the car wash, and then drive home. And so when we anchor on things like the number of people that are within 2 or 3 miles or within a 5-minute drive, we find that those anchor points are better off in the retail space than they are necessarily in the home space in that case. So that's kind of the where. So then we want to talk about the right time. And you can see depicted on the slide here is kind of where we see that. Basically, look at that graph, and as the curve on the top right hits its peak, that's when you want to open your car wash. Very, very simply, if you can plan it, and I know it's very hard to plan it with supply chain and construction and permitting, you kind of want to be in the Q2 to Q3 timeframe. Why is that? There's two real reasons. One is just the manna from heaven that is pollen across the United States. Like that's just a slam dunk, because people who will not wash their cars the entire year will wash their cars during that time period. And that's an opportunity. That's an exposure event for you to get new customers in the door. And the second thing is that we find that people that sign up for memberships in that Q2 to Q3 timeframe tend overall, on average, to have a higher lifetime value than those that sign up in Q4 and into Q1. And there's seasonality aspects to that. It may be different in Colorado than it is in Alabama, but we find that generally that holds true. So when you're thinking about where to go, it's high frequency retail, it's a visible site, it's understanding where people are going. And then when you're thinking of when, it's that Q2, Q3 timeframe. Okay, cool. So now we're going to talk about the right offerings at the right price. And I have a very, very simplistic P&L here for you just to see. And the reason I bring this up is for two reasons. One, as I mentioned at the beginning, is volume. This is a high volume industry. We are trying to push 1,000 cars through your site on a Saturday. It is critical that we're able to do that. And we don't want to put people in a position where they don't understand what's going on. The other reason that we want to do this is because of ticket. And you can see there that the price, probably pretty clear, like the price increases go straight to the bottom line. So driving a revenue per car mindset alongside that traffic mindset of the volume is where we're going to have the most success. And so if we go to the next slide, I think we're going to see an example of this. Okay, so what you see depicted here are kind of a before and after Suds taking a client from their old signage to their new signage and new pricings. And why I bring this up on the left-hand side is that this is very, very typical in the industry of an operator speaking to an operator. So you see that we talk all about all of the attributes at all of these different levels of wash. And what we find is that people basically black out when they go up and see this. They're just like, I can't handle this. I'm going to take the $12 wash because it's in the middle. And that's not what we want them to do. We want them to understand what they're getting very quickly, so they self-select into a higher retail per car kind of mindset. But we need to really guard against that on the left-hand side of that. Like, I really want to tell people that they're getting triple foam, and like that doesn't really mean anything to anybody. That is a consumer. It certainly means a lot to the operators, but generally a consumer doesn't really know what clear coat protectant is. They just want their car to be shiny and drive when it comes out. And on the right-hand side, you see kind of how we start to think about that, and we target different price points, and we also target very simple messages. And so ceramic, I'll kind of table because that's a little bit operator focused. But if you think about lava bath and tire shiner, the top two things on the signature wash there, like the customer can see that. That is the first thing that they see when they go through the wash, is that big lava bath that comes down. and then they know they're going to have shiny tires. So this is all about pricing and putting products in place that minimize the strain on the customer, allow them to quickly make the decision that we want them to do, and then get through the line. Okay, I think we can go on. I think we're going to talk about retail prices. So specific to then the pricing, you see here on the left-hand side, the $10, $15, $20 for good, better, best, very symmetrical price, makes a lot of sense. The point here is that let's be careful about the assumptions that we have in pricing going into this industry. And so we get a lot of operators that push back on pricing changes, that push back on pricing increases. And frankly, there's so much optimization that can be done in the retail world to drive an increase. As you can see here, we're basically driving a $1 increase in gross RPC by just shifting one middle price a couple dollars. And what we're doing there is this concept of the dominant alternative, where we're having someone look at $17 and go, well, I mean, 20 is only $3 more, so I'm just going to shift myself into $20. And what we generally find is operators are very reticent to do this stuff because it just makes them nervous. They feel like they're really messing with the most powerful tool that they have, which is pricing. But we have gotten incredibly good at understanding the interplay between these levels. And so there is an optimal price point for every one of your sites. And it's about making sure we find that, stick to that. And this also goes back to the same conversation we were having with the signs, where this is cognitive ease. This is very easy for the customer to understand. 10, 17, oh, I'd rather go to 20. Boom, hit 20, go through the wash. Cool. Okay, so then we talk about, what about my passes? What about my membership passes? And there's a little bit more of art to the membership passes, because it depends a lot on what you're trying to potentially do or what your goals are. And it's one of the things that I mentioned, I think, Todd, when we were at ICA, that people just say, like, I just want to grow my car wash. Well, that can mean a lot of different things. Like, do you mean you want to increase your member count? Does it mean you want just top line revenue? Are you looking four-wall EBITDA? Like, what is your metric for success here? And we see that play out here in the pass pricing. And so on the left-hand side, you have a retail wash that's $10, and that person can sign up for a pass for $15. That is going to drive really, really good sign up and really, really good tenure. And you're going to have a lot of members. And that is a great thing, because you have really stable revenue. However, it may be somewhat margin dilutive over the course of the long term. So you're going to have these folks, they're not going to be paying a lot, but boy, they're going to be great members, and they're going to be really stable going forward. And on the other side, you have, it's a $10 wash, and the person can sign up for a $25 pass. That's obviously a lot harder to sell, but the goal here is that if we can minimize the churn on them, as we would call the recharge ticket average is significantly higher, and you're going to drive a lot more EBITDA or profit to the bottom line. So there's a little bit more, like, what we like to do with clients is just understand your goals and then price according to that. But generally, we find that between 1.5 and 2 to 2.5 is really that sweet spot for pricing passes. What I would say is, don't necessarily be scared of the 1.5. It can be very, very effective. You can drive a lot of members that way. And don't necessarily be scared of the 2 or 2.5, because you can drive quite a bit of recharge ticket average to the bottom line as well. Okay. And then, so this is my last slide. So I'm going to talk a little bit about finally bringing it all together. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we're trying to form this funnel that points directly to your site when you grand open. And the takeaway here is, get the marketing on rails early. This is very illustrative. This is not actually what we do. I'm not giving away the farm. This is just very basic stuff, and it only starts out 2 weeks, which is not true. But the takeaway here is, you want this stuff on rails, because you're going to be trying to test your site. You're going to be trying to test your chemicals. You've got several hundred cars worth that you have to run through to make sure that your wash is timed correctly. You're building a small manufacturing facility. So make sure that the marketing is just locked on and ready to go, so that you're driving traffic at the right time. And when we talk about it, we talk about this omni-channel approach, where you may have a billboard and a mailer and email and social media and programmatic retargeting, geofencing, all of those things work in concert to drive people to your site exactly when we want them to come, which is right at your grand opening, and drive you through the first 90 days. So that's the takeaway there. So I think that should be my last slide, Todd.
That is, and I'm going to pivot from that and then talk about how do we measure that first 90 days, because as we all know, What gets measured, what gets managed. So let's go ahead and look at some of those KPIs. Again, just as a reminder, if you have any questions for us, please put them through the Q&A and we'll get to those here. I've got a few more slides to go and then we'll answer questions after that. So let's move on to KPIs. So a good point of sale system will include a robust reporting engine with dashboards. And that leads to the question, what should you measure? We'll start with plan data. And starting easily with plans sold. The more plans you sell today, the more revenue you're going to have recharged at the end of the month. Have daily, weekly, and monthly goals for your team to meet so that they have targets each day. With my sales teams here at DRB, we measure to a year-end quota, but we also measure how much have we done this week? What have we done this month? And it kind of translates into the car wash world. Competition around selling plans can go a long way to help you kind of drive that revenue and make those first 90 days more important. Next is capture rate. We love pay-as-you-go customers, right? We want them to come in and pick a wash and get a high ticket average, but we also want to turn those pay-as-you-go customers into recurring plan members. So let's watch the trends there again, daily, weekly, and monthly. How many of our regular pay-as-you-go customers are we converting and selling a plan to? And then we'll talk about churn rate, which is basically how many plans turned over, how many plans do we lose? You won't be able to watch this in the first month, but after you've been up and running, you'll start to see churn. And if you run promos around your, we were giving a first month free or a first month at $5 or $10, watch that churn rate. You really want to make sure that you're managing your churn and use tools such as Card Account Updater to take, if a customer has an expiring card Account Updater, which can work in the back end, will go out and ask the bank if there's a new card for that customer and automatically change it in the system. That's important to kind of control your churn. So keep an eye on that, especially as your grand opening promotions drop off. And then finally, recharges. After the first month, you want to watch this daily. Keep an eye on your recharges, and most of them should recharge on the first attempt. The good news is if it doesn't recharge on the first attempt, you can set your system up to kind of keep trying over the course of several days. Some folks may be at their credit limit. If they use a debit card with a Visa logo, they may not have enough money in the account to recharge. So we'll try again for a few days. But keep an eye on that. That'll help you kind of get early warning signs when you're having troubles with your management of your plans. And then we'll talk about car counts. It seems basic. I've been talking about car counts for 25 years, but it's really important to know what are my peak times. When do I want to staff? My point of sale system should be insight as to, based on the weather, when am I going to be busiest to make sure I have maybe extra coverage to help selling plans and do conversions of that sort. So manage your car counts to your labor and kind of find out what's going on. Watch for your slow times. If I know I'm slow between 7 in the morning and 9 in the morning, I don't need as many people to staff, and but I may have more time to spend with those customers to convert, because if they're coming in early, maybe they're on their way to work and it's a good time to catch them and talk about a membership. So it's important to kind of watch those car counts. And then again, watch your mix. If you're seeing different skewing and too many people are picking the bottom two washes, it's a good time to look at your pricing and maybe go to that dominant alternative strategy that we talked about earlier and get that gap between the middle and the top wash a little bit closer. Maybe you have too many wash packages. If you have 4 or 5 wash packages and you're seeing counts skewing towards the bottom two, it may be a good time to condense down to 3 or 4 washes and change your pricing to match up with that. So all these metrics quickly available on your insights dashboard and your point of sale can kind of help you get where you need to go. And then again, watch the number of members you have redeeming. If you want to retain members, especially when you give a promo, you want to remind those folks to use that plan. You want folks that are washing their car, especially in the first month, you want them washing 4 to 7 times. So they're getting used to it. They're used to having a clean car and they're keeping things rolling. So keep an eye on your redemptions as well. So we've talked about the criticality of the first 90 days, the importance of plans and pricing and your KPIs, but how do you do it? And more importantly, how do you do it right the first time? We think that the point of sale is one of those very important decisions you're going to make up front. Point of sale and then the agency behind it to help you make these decisions. And if you don't do it right the first time out of the gate, you're going to set yourself behind. So you may be tempted to just pick the point of sale that your equipment manufacturer recommended or whatever one's the cheapest. But is that really going to help you maximize those consumers and that are coming to your business? You want to be able to market to them, help your consumer make the right decision, and let us help guide that consumer to pick your plan and kind of go forward from there. You should select your point of sale when you choose the rest of the equipment, but you don't have to choose the point of sale your equipment manufacturer offers. Really, we encourage you to research this on the front end, because it's more costly to switch And when you do switch point of sale, you're going to lose members in the transfer. And you do not want to lose those members that you really worked hard to gain and earn. So really work on that. It's a very important decision. And then we can kind of talk about the software features and functionality and what you use, whether you want to use license plate recognition to track every customer that comes through, or you just want to use RFID for your members. We can kind of talk you through the pros and cons of both. So these are things that we want to talk about as you're trying to make that decision around point of sale. Compatibility, when you're picking your point of sale, make sure that your point of sale is compatible with your tunnel controller. Most our point of sale systems, SiteWatch and Patheon, are compatible with just about every different tunnel controller in the industry, not just the one that we sell. And then in the in-bay automatic side, our point of sale systems, we connect to almost every in-bay automatic that's out there. So ask that question as you're choosing your point of sale when you're making these decisions. And I love this stat. 86% of consumers have left a brand in the past year due to poor customer experience. No matter how reliable your technology is, there's going to come a time when something fails, and it's usually at the worst possible time. When you have a line of cars on a beautiful sunny Saturday afternoon, downtime equals lost revenue, and it impacts your customer's experience. So make sure you've got a technology partner that's there for you that will really keep your site up and running, and get parts to you quickly when something does break, and keeps things rolling. There's a great stat from Gartner that says 89% of the businesses will soon be expected to compete mainly on customer experience alone. How does the point of sale impact that? Well, that is your customers' first experience with the wash is with the point of sale. You want to make sure that the provider can actually get you the business that you need. Sorry, I had a phone call. That was kind of fun. Make sure that the provider can give you quality and promptness of service, because that's going to impact how you market to your customers. So what questions should you be asking when you're trying to choose a point of sale and helping you determine that the company can properly support your system and your business as you grow? First question is, how long have you been in the industry? Are you new? Are you just picking this up? Do you understand car washing? How long have you been providing point of sale? What future developments do you have in mind? How many of the top car washes are using your solutions? How is your support structured? Do you have a team that's available 24/7, 365? When I have a problem, can I reach someone? Do you offer in-person installation? And what training do you offer? Just a lot of questions. Really dig deep when you're picking your point of sale provider, and we'll be glad to answer all those questions for you. My team is there and ready to help you make that decision. It's a very important decision to help you grow that business. Finally, a little bit of an advertisement. DRB, we really think D stands for data, insights, and solutions. We have the largest installation base of any point of sale provider, which gives us unrivaled access to industry data. And our data insights combined with our team at Suds can help you chart that path to growth. Again, reliable, intuitive software and hardware innovations. We're trusted by 38 of the top 50 conveyorized car wash chains. That's more than any other provider in our industry. And there's a reason that they're using DRB. They know that it keeps their business up and running and functioning, and it helps them market to their consumers in the best way possible. And finally, I'm a little biased here, but it's our best in class team. We have 550 team members located across the United States that are committed to the car wash industry. And that's evident in every interaction the operators have with our staff, whether it's our sales team, our technical support team, our R&D team, all the way down to our supply chain team, going the extra mile to get you the parts that you need and making sure that we're always stocked and ready to go. We have a culture that we believe in. It's around humble, hungry, and smart. Basically, we want to be humble and help you. We want to be hungry, always striving for a better solution. And we want to be not just intelligent, but we want to be people smart. We want our interactions with you to be the type of interactions that you want to have with your team members and your employees as well. We want to work together to go the extra mile and take responsibility for things that are happening at your site. So that wraps up what we had from the actual presentation standpoint. We do have a couple questions here that I'm going to read and kind of bring Dan back in. Dan, the first one is an anonymous question. It asks, you mentioned building up your membership base in the first 90 days. Billboards, social media, geofencing, et cetera, help funnel people to come in for opening days. What ideas do you have to how do we gather that data? The people passing by the car wash when it's being built, after it's built, just how do we reach those folks?
Yeah, so I think that there's a couple of things, and they range from the incredibly technologically advanced to just a straight up flyer on a car. But for things like social media and programmatic retargeting, like we're going to tag those ads to follow that customer through the whole chain. And as they come into the car wash, then they use their credit card, they use their name, maybe they sign up for a pass, and we can link those two things so we understand kind of what reach we're having. That's kind of in the more technical side. We also do this concept of pre-sale where we'll sell a membership even before the site opens at like a deep discount. That obviously collects data. And then there's just a straight up ground and pound of like the flyer on the car of the gym across the street that has a barcode attached to it that we can then track for that customer coming in. And so that's the actual human kind of data capture. We also have tools like on-site tools that help capture data, like for name, phone, email, much faster than it would have been traditionally. I've mentioned the programmatic retargeting through geofencing, like that's anonymized, but you at least get an idea of like who's responding to your ads and where they're going. So that's kind of another one. And then there's some future technologies for more passive kind of data collection, but those are probably not ready for prime time, I would say, at this point, certainly in the car wash industry. Does that work, Todd?
Yeah, that was great. Thanks. I apologize. PowerPoint just crashed, so now you get to see Dan and I screen. I will bring that back up here in a minute. A couple other questions that have come up. Next question asked about, does DRB require you to use their credit card merchant processor? Can we use our own if we get good rates? Some banks give you better lending rates if you use their processor. I get this question daily, multiple times a day. And unfortunately, we have two different credit card merchant processors you can choose from, but let me give you kind of the background and the why on that. With the way that recharges work and the fact that we're storing tokens, we have to be very specific with how we store that data, how that data is tracked. So we have two that you can choose from, and we allow you to kind of negotiate your rates with those folks. And our team can talk about that as we go. But we are tied to those two merchant processors. They are negotiated very good rates, and as your volume grows, you can even get better rates as far as that goes. So that was the answer to that one. Next question, what support do you provide after the first 90 days? I'll talk about it from the POS side, and then I'll let Dan talk about it from the Suds Creative side. We are 24/7, 365 customer support. We do a lot of helping you with pricing changes, support on the system. We're kind of your IT team as we work through that because we're controlling everything in the site. So our support is always there, not for just your first 90 days, but as you go. But Dan, I'll let you talk about ways Suds can help after the first 90 days.
Yeah, Suds does three things really well. One, it turns your complicated car wash transaction data into actionable insights. So I'm going to tell you how your site is performing relative to others, how your pricing is performing, how your product mix is working. Like that's one of the things we do. We have a suite of software products and services that we provide that kind of focus on operator pain points. I know Todd mentioned, we talk about churn, we talk about voluntary, which is like I've decided to leave. We also talk about involuntary, which is like my credit card, it just got expired or declined. We have products that focus on that involuntary churn. And then the third thing, as I mentioned kind of early on, is like we're the design arm of DRB. So if you want your screens to look a certain way, to reflect something, as I mentioned on those prices for the wash packages, like 13% additional ticket average we find if we design that board when we change the prices. Like the design element cannot be understated how powerful that is. We have the behavioral economics that we know that people are going to want to go this direction, but we reinforce that through the design. So those are kind of the three things that we do.
Perfect. That's all we have for questions. If anybody else has any questions, please add them in right now. I'll vamp here for just another minute or two. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us. Our phone numbers are on the screen. My email address is twdavy@drb.com. You can send any email to that, and I'll make sure it gets to the right team. If you want to go a little more generic, in case I happen to be on a beach somewhere, because I am leaving for a vacation in a couple of days, you can actually reach out to info@drb.com, and we will get any questions, answers that you have there. We monitor that. Again, we're monitoring it all the time. You can also reach us on social media. We have a Talk DRB Tunnel Solutions page group where we also kind of watch the Top Car Wash group on Facebook quite a bit. And you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and everything like that. I do have one more question, so I vamped in perfect amount of time there. Dan, the question came up, do this differ if you buy an existing car wash instead of going ground up? And I'll let you kind of take that one.
It's great. That's a great question. So bottom line is we will significantly alter this go-to-market plan, if you want to call it that, for a converted car. Like let's say that you're just acquiring it and it's kind of flagging and you want to jam a bunch of new members in, we can do that. Let's say that you're going to convert it to another brand because you're building another brand, we can help with that. Like yes, the plan is very much tailor-made to that particular environment. So yeah, the first 90 days of a ground up is very different than acquiring one, but we can account for that. We've certainly done that across the country, honestly.
That's awesome. One other question that just came up, is this webinar recorded so that we can access later? And then if so, how? Yeah, we will actually be sending out a link to the webinar within the next 24 hours to everybody that attended and everybody that registered as well. And then interestingly, if you go to our website, drb.com, we track a lot of our previous presentations and webinars like this that we've done out on the resources page. There's a learning library, there's a new investor car wash ebook, and plenty of options out there. Just a ton of information. Our marketing team has done a fantastic job of making sure we get the information you need to see out there. So feel free to go through that. One more question here, because this will be the last one that we take for today. Dan, again, another one. Everybody wants to ask the Suds guy, which is always great. I like just teeing him up. If our brand name and website has already been created, can you still assist with the wash design and the creative?
Yeah, the bottom line is yes, we certainly can. We can go from literally this car wash is a twinkle in my eye to I've just bought 7 of them and I don't know what I'm doing. Help. Like, we can do anything in between those things. So yes, creative design, website design, as you mentioned, in that case, like you already have a brand and website. Yes, we can alter and work in any kind of scenario. We have modules that we can apply to any of those situations. So absolutely.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you everybody for joining us today. I know that these webinars, I appreciate you had 40 minutes of sitting here in front of your screen. Really appreciate the feedback. Great questions. And again, any questions, please reach out to either one of us and have a great day. Thanks for joining.